I moved to the Quad Cities in 2015 and my life has not looked the same since. But why and how? Well, let's talk about it. So to really understand how my life changed since moving here, we have to really go back and look at what it was like before I moved here. And what it was looking like before I moved here was I had just graduated college. I was a broke college kid, had student debt, and I was ready to start a new life. And how that happened to be here in the Quad Cities is that I had a job offer with a company called Alcoa, which is actually now called Arconic. So I was on my way here, a broke college kid. I literally had only $200 to my name when I moved here in January of 2015. And let me tell you, that first month was rough. $200. And at the time, Arconic was only paying once per month. I started at the beginning of the month. So I literally had $200 in order to make it through the whole month. And luckily for me, I didn't have friends. I didn't know anybody around. So I wasn't going out to have a bunch of spending going on. And I had no TV, didn't have any internet in my apartment, so it was bleak to say the least. But, if that's how it started, why has it changed my life? And to be honest with you, it has changed my life for the better. That first month of moving here did seem very bleak, but eventually things started to pick up. In January, it is obviously very cold. Not a lot to do, even if I did know people here, just not a ton going on during the winter. But what I started doing is trying to integrate myself into the Quad Cities. And I started out doing that by volunteering for different groups. One in particular was Big Brothers Big Sisters, which I still volunteer for today. And because I started volunteering, that's when I started meeting some people and really integrating into the community. That was the first inkling of, yes, this was a great choice to move to the Quad Cities. Started, like I said, meeting people, starting to develop friendships, and starting to really fall in love with volunteering, which I didn't do a ton of in college. And as I started meeting people through the volunteering, that's when I found out that there is a ton, and I mean a ton, of different sports leagues around the Quad Cities. I was playing in ultimate frisbee tournaments. I was playing on a soccer league, which I'm not built for soccer. It was a lot of fun, but I'm also not upset that I'm not playing anymore. You get my drift. But regardless, I made a lot of great friends when I was there. I even played on a deck hockey team, and deck hockey, I wouldn't say is super well known in other areas besides the Quad Cities, but around here it's a pretty big deal. And basically what deck hockey is hockey on a deck. You play with hockey sticks and you have a ball, or you don't wear ice skates, but it's a ton of fun and you have to prepare yourself because it's a pretty good workout when you are playing. But again, it was just that transition from not knowing anybody, not having any friends, to starting to play on some of these leagues, which I still enjoy playing on every now and then. And the point I'm trying to get with talking about this story is that if you put yourself out there and integrate with the community will give it back to you. And it's a great thing once you start feeling that vibe right here in the community. Now, after I started joining a lot of these sports leagues, that's when I really felt like I was a part of the community and how I started understanding where things are and how things function here. And that's why people call me nowadays, just because I've lived those experiences and they trust me to help them in that process if you're deciding to move to the Quad Cities. So my number is popping up down below. If you have questions like that specifically, let me know. I can try to help you out there, but let's move on. And the other thing that struck me about the Quad Cities, coming from a town of about 1,500 people, was that it was immense, huge, it's expansive. And the more that I lived here, the more I've realized that, yes, it is a larger city in the state of Iowa, but it really doesn't always feel that way. It does feel like a small town. We have a great sense of community right here. People help their neighbors. You run into people every now and then, and it's a great time. And one place that people run into each other are some of the events that go on. Specifically things like St. Patrick's Day in downtown, the Bix, which is an amazing event. Even if you're not a runner, it is a 7-mile race, by the way. But even if you're not a runner, it's really fun just to go downtown Davenport and feel the crowd that is there. They have almost 20,000 runners that run that. So very cool event and something you can't get necessarily in a small town. So to have that here, awesome. But again, it's because of events like this that I started running into people that I've known or didn't know, and it does make it feel like a smaller community. And today what I talk about is it is a large city, you have some options, but it's also got that vibe of a smaller city, a smaller town that Iowa is really famous for, and it's just a cool thing to experience. And the Quad Cities even has you covered when it comes to healthcare, and I found out this firsthand. I was visiting a buddy of mine up in Minnesota and decided to ride a dirt bike. Needless to say, I didn't ride it very well. I ended up breaking my leg into 6 pieces. I went to the hospital up there, which you may be familiar with, called Mayo Clinic, and I spent in the ER for 19 hours, which I never want to go to ER again. That was the first time and hopefully last time that I have to be there. But regardless, ended up having to drive myself back. I had to sign whatever because I wanted to get out of that ER so bad. Drive myself back to the Quad Cities in order to talk to my doctors here. And at the time I didn't have a doctor, so finding a doctor was an experience. But once I did have a doctor, they took care of me one of the best ways I could ever ask for. Now, I went to what they call ORA, which is orthopedics, and they specialize in stuff like what I did, broken bones. Ended up having surgery, getting 10 screws put into my leg, a plate to hold everything stable, recovered in about 6 months or so. It was a pretty bad break, to be honest with you, and then I was on my way. But the thing that I said I liked about it is the people were super nice. If I ever had a question about anything, they were there for me. The rehab process, awesome. They were one of the best I've ever experienced. So it's a great thing that we have right here in the community. I just absolutely love it. But after that, I really wanted to get more outdoors. And the thing that I really like about the Quad Cities is the amount of parks that we have. Obviously, you can see that I'm in a park right now. It's just a beautiful day out to get outside and enjoy some of these things. But the thing that I would say the Quad Cities is lacking is big state parks, big forested areas, because I came from a small town in western Iowa where we have what we call the Luss Hills, and we have public land pretty much everywhere. You can hike pretty much anywhere you want to go. Around here, not so much. There are a few. Scott County Park is an amazing one to go to, as is Wildcat Den, which is over by Muscatine, and I highly recommend that, especially during the fall, because you get all those beautiful fall colors. But regardless, it is a little bit lacking in those senses. In the cities though, that's a whole different story. There are parks just about every corner of the area, and if you like getting out, walking your dog, taking a walk, going on a bike trail, we have you covered in many, many ways when it comes to the Quad Cities. Now, the whole point of this whole story is to really let you guys understand my experience when I moved here and make a decision on if the Quad Cities is a place for you. And because I've lived here, I know the areas, I know what it's like, and I know it's tough if you're moving here. So if you have specific questions about moving here, different areas, different experiences, my number is coming up down below. Give me a call, send me a text, send me email if you want to. I am the one that answers all of those. But for now, if you want to watch more about the Quad Cities, well, check out this video right here.